31. What is the modern name for Moabites? 32. Where's the Moroccan Empire? 33. What is the modern name for a Mexican? 34. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco? 35. Where do we get the name Jesus?
From the east.
36. What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
37. Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus?
Yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin.
38. What is an angel?
Angel, the God of love manifested in human flesh.
39. What are angels used for? 40. What is our prophet to us?
He's an angel who is sent to bring us to everlasting gospel.
41. What is the everlasting gospel? 42. What is the covenant of great God Allah? 43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
12.
44. Where did he teach?
India, Africa, and Europe.
45. How long did he teach?
18 years.
46. What did Jesus say that would make you free?
Truth.
47. What is truth?
Truth is art.
48. What is art?
Art is love.
49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
50. What other names do we give truth?
Holy breath.
51. What have you to say about holy breath?
Only to say that is great.
52. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed? 53. Where's the Garden of Eden?
The land of Canaan, the city of Mecca.
54. What is the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
55. What is the name of the first physical man?
It cannot be used only by the executive rulers of A.C. of the MST of A.
56. What are the words of AC of the MST of A? 57. Who were Adam and Eve?
Their mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims.
58. Where did they go?
They went into Asia.
59. What is the modern name given to the children?
Asiatics.
60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away?
Angels.
61. What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
62. What is the shade of their skin?
Out.
63. Are the Moorish Americans any relation to those angels?
Yes. You had the same father and mother.
64. Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, beast.
65. What is the devil sometimes called? 66. How many selves are there?
2.
67. Name them.
Higher self, lower self.
68. What people represent the higher self?
Protect the holy city of Mecca.
69. What people represent the lower self?
Protect out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings.
70. What is the higher self?
Higher self is the mother of virtues, the harmonies of life. It brings justice, mercy, love, and right.
71. Can a higher self pass away?
No,
72. Why?
because it is Allah and man.
73. What does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murders, death, and everything that harms.
74. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
Where are you going, Satan?
75. What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour.
76. Has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
77. When was his time declared out?
When he nailed Jesus to the cross.
78. What were the last words Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
79. What did he have reference to?
He had reference to the end of Satan.
80. Did Jesus say that he will return to conquer him?
Yes.
81. What is the name of the person whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror.
82. Was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was to be bound apart.
83. When was the head of Satan taken off?
1453 Byzantine.
84. By whom?
Muhammad.
85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations of 1774.
Negro, black, colored,
86. Negro.
the name given to the river in West Africa by the Moors that contained that water.
87. What is meant by the word black?
Black, according to science, means death.
88. What does the word colored mean?
Color means anything that is painted, stained, or dyed.
89. What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something divided.
90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No.
91. Why?
Man,
92. What title does Satan give himself?
God.
93. Will you define the word white?
White means purity. Purity means God. God means the love of the land.
94. To whom do we refer at times being the great God?
Allah.
95. Is the devil made in the image and the likeness of Allah?
No. He is a child of our Lord, something who passed away.
96. Who made the devil?
Elohim.
97. Who is Elohim?
Elohim, seven-created spirit to be everything that was, is, and ever want to be.
98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
The seven knowledge of Allah.
99. How many days are in a circle?
7 days.
100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
101. According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
Islam. All right, family, let's have a small demonstration. Those who have a Quran, you can go to chapter 48. The end of time, the fulfilling of the prophecies. Get that over. 1 second. Before I read chapter 48, I just wanted to go into the oral statements and prophecies of Noble Drew Ali. And I'm going to tie my lesson into this as well, because this is huge. I'm not sure if anyone heard Donald Trump he wants to implement new IDs on the land for citizens to have nationality cards. So when I watched the news, I'm gonna tell you, I was just stuck for about an hour. Because like I tell anyone, if you ever doubted this man, day by day his prophecies are coming to light. And I just wanted to share with you. The article itself, just so we can hear it. I know it's to be a little rough, but if you can.
If Trump expects to round up and deport 11 million men, women, and children who have been...
Yes. Oh, no, it's a different outlet. Well, I'll let you listen to it, and then what you don't hear, I'll just recite it again.
If Trump expects to round up and deport 11 million men, women, and children who have entered the United States illegally, then the rest of us who are already here in the U.S. need a way to prove that we are here legally. Presidential candidate Donald Trump wants proof of citizenship to be made clear, requiring all citizens to carry around nationality ID cards. To be caught without your papers is to risk being detained or even imprisoned while your status is checked. Trump even claims to want to make America safe again by requiring everyone to put their religion on their ID as well. He's even going as far as having a chip full of information about you. One would expect that under a Trump administration, non-citizens and Muslims would not be allowed to buy guns. A national card ID would go by the old saying, don't leave home without it.
And so that really brought me to, I want to read the nationality card, and that's part of what had me stuck, because this man implemented this in the early 1900s. It's 2020, and things
1459,
according to the Gregorian calendar, it's 2020, and since that time he had Morse carried around nationality cards, and for some time a lot of us pretty much didn't know the significance of why and why we had these nationality cards, and how detrimental it was to us as Moors to have this piece of information with us. We didn't even know how powerful it was back then. A lot of us don't even know how powerful it is today. So I just want to read the back. This is nationality and identification card for the Moorish Science Temple of America, and birthrights for the Moorish Americans, etc. We honor all divine prophets, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Confucius. May the blessings of the God of our Father Allah be upon you that carry this card. I do hereby declare that you are a Muslim under divine laws, under the Holy Quran of Mecca. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I am a citizen of the U.S.A. Islam. That was beautiful because even now today in 2020, we're going into a so-called era where he said, now this is a new era of time now, and all men must declare their free national name to be recognized by the government and the nations of the earth. And also, like he said in Divine Warning, if all other nations are forced to proclaim their free national name on the record, it's only right that those that belong here do the same thing as well. So that was beautiful that time ago that he made these nationality cards, and in 2020, it's just getting ready to be implemented by the U.S. So I just wanted to give honor to the prophet. And I just want to read a couple of his statements out of the oral statements out of the prophet, the prophecies. 54. The membership is going to dwindle down to a handful, but keep the doors open, and I would drive the Asiatics in. 57. Watch the newspapers and listen to the radio. I am going to make the European tell the truth. A few more. Whew. I am not going to wake up all the Asiatics at once because they may tear up something. I just want to stop there and then go into chapter 48. The end of time and the fulfilling of the prophecies. The last prophet in these days, Noble U.S.A, who was prepared divinely in due time by Allah to redeem men from their sinful ways and to warn them of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus in those days, to warn and stir up the nation and prepare them to receive the divine creed, which was to be taught by Jesus, which was to be taught by justice. In these modern days, there came a forerunner who was divinely prepared by the great God Allah, and his name is Marcus Garvey, who did teach and warn the nations of the earth to prepare to meet their coming prophet, who was to bring the true and divine creed of Islam, and his name is Noble U.S.A, who was prepared and sent to this earth by Allah to teach the old-time religion and the everlasting gospels to the Son of Men, that every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree, and return to their own and be one with their Father God Allah. The Moorish Science Temple of America is a lawfully chartered and incorporated organization. Any subordinate temple that desires to receive a charter, the prophet has them to issue to every state throughout the United States, etc., that the world may hear and know the truth, that among the descendants of Africa there is still much wisdom to be learned in these days for the redemption of the sons of men, under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We, as a clean and pure nation descended from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate nor marry into families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed, for the redemption and salvation of mankind on this earth. Therefore, we are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish American, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. The covenant of the great God Allah: honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earthland which the Lord God Allah hath given thee. Come, all ye Asiatics of America, and hear the truth about your nationality and birthright, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient divine creed, that you will learn to love instead of hate. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come link yourselves with the families of nations. We honor all true and divine prophets. Islam. I just wanted to share that with the family. That just really set important to me on my heart for the past few days when I first heard the demonstration of Trump about the nationality card. And like I said again, it's just, obviously all of us in this room, we don't have doubt in our hearts or shouldn't have any doubts of what we follow and who we believe in and what we believe in. But even though we know it in our hearts, just to, it should make all of us happy to know that we're on the right path of linking ourselves back with our ancient forefathers' divine creed and principle, and letting the statements of the prophet ring true day after day. That things that he prepared so long time ago are finally just starting to, and will continue to come into fruition. Islam, Chishati.
Yes, Islam already rose and gave all the accolades. That piece is very important. It should be very important to each and every one here and out and abroad. That nationality is the order of the day. This is clear proof that anyway, yes, Trump been talking about this before, but now it's even becoming more self-evident in these times. So now the prophet has already been saying this from the start. Nationality is the order of the day. Come link yourself back up with the nations of the earth. Stop being black and African Americans because Trump will mess around and throw you on a ship somewhere and you ain't never been there in your life. But because you look like that, see, they're trying to impose this. They're imposing this new world order. Been speaking about it for years. Now we're face to face with the new world orders, practices, and he's their king. So like if you look back on his history, if you look back on his family history, his father was the head of the KKK. What? Well, it's just truth. Okay, then fine.
That's not the
if you look back, I understand, but anyway, if you look back on his family history, his family tree puts that up front. Where his gender is. So it's important for us to look at what we're doing now and actually take it serious, because this is not a joke. You know what I'm saying? That little piece he played is not a joke. This man is really trying to cause problems for the Asiatics. He already stated openly they don't like Muslims. And we're Muslims, so we have to make sure that we have our knowledge intact, with not no discourse in our hearts, but just have ourselves prepared, because this is a very, very serious issue that's right in our face right now. It's Islam.
Brother Feingold.
Islam. First up, rising, I give all praises to Allah, the Father of the universe. I give honors to Noble Drew Ali, the Prophet, honors to Marcus Garvey, honors to the Grand Sheikh, honors to the Sheikhs, honors to the Sheikhs, honors to all members and tenants and everything pertaining to Islam.
Islam.
I found out that Noble Drew Ali in the 1920s, early in the 1920s, he was in Germany, and he was opening up a mosque down there, basically a temple. And his name of the people down there, or the mosque, the following was the Ahmadiyya, Ahmadians. And he opened that up in Germany. So now his name was Maulvi Mubarak Ali, BA, Bachelor of Arts, in that time when he was in Germany. And that was his German name. And so that right now in Germany, the Ahmadiyas, they are the head basically in that place in Islam as Muslims. They are propagating the faith of Muhammad down there as Muslims, and they're called the Ahmadiyas. And now we have a president that's from Germany, saying certain things that the prophet was dealing with. That's why I wanted to add that. Islam.
I will conclude my little demonstration about the importance of the nationality card and the severity of it. And I just want to end on this note. In those days, the United States shall be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if my above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come.
Islam. Absolutely.
Islam. And that concludes my demonstration. Next speaker you hear from will be the Grand Sheikh of the Temple, Lord Nature El Bey. Islam.
Islam, Morse.
Islam.
Rise and give praise to Allah, giving honors to our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, giving honors to all active, loyal, and faithful Moors, giving honors to our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters, and lastly, giving honors to our children. Islam. Speaking of our founder, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, I want to continue on the lesson that Brother Omari just brought forth to us concerning and pertaining the purpose of our organization. Now, the purpose, reiterating editorial speaking, is the uplifting of fallen humanity. It's also teaching our members to be better citizens. So when we're talking about citizens, we're also talking about civic instructions or civic lessons, because civics pertain to citizens. So if you're talking about raising the consciousness or the condition or the health or the welfare of the citizens, then that's plurally speaking using the term civics. So that's what makes us rooted as a civic organization. So we have a lot of confusion about the nature of the organization. But if we understand the fundamentals of this, we'll understand that the nature of it is civics in nature. The science of the organization is a civic organization. So one of the mission statements that the Prophet put out there when he did his foot ministry was, "Come all ye Asiatics of America and hear the truth about your nationality and your birthrights. Know that you're not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopian." So as we listen to his lesson, listen to his call, because that's a plural call, right? This was in the beginning of his footwork, like we were speaking. This is what he set himself out to do. This is what his mission, his overall objective mission, outside of the different components of that mission. Like he said, it's a Rotarian complexion. So there's going to be a plethora of situations, ideas, and activities that take place all under the umbrella of the organization. But the mission, the overall objective, is what I need everyone to highlight in their mind, because during our course of events, we got to make sure that we don't lose sight of what the overall mission is. Because sometimes we get lost in the mission because there's so many things to do. We get distracted. And generally, not just as Moors or as Moorish Americans, but really as humans. As humans, collectively, we're lost. Where we can erase the Moorish concept of why we're here and just get down to the science of the fact that the humans collectively have lost direction in the course of human events. And this is another reason why Drew Ali had to get us on track. You know, we were not even conscious of of the human events, because we were branded Negro, Black, and Coloreds, and we were invoked into slavery. So we was reduced from the consciousness and the level of humanity. And that's why he said humanity must be lifted, uplifted from the unwholesome depths of poverty. So remember, we wasn't even on equal footing with the rest of humanity. That's another statement. He says, come link yourselves with the family of nations. That's humanity again. So just highlighting, clearing up maybe some distorted concepts before we move forward. So we'll understand that this is not necessarily a religious thing from the concept of how people think, like mine's and yours. It's not about that. It's not about directly my nationality or my organization and yours. Sometimes we get lost in that argument as well. But this is about humanity. And the only way to get back on track with understanding humanity is by understanding who you are and who your forefathers are. And once we understand that concept and understand who we are and the source from where we came from, then we can start to take our place with the equal footings of the rest of the nations, because they're already functioning from a nation, i.e. a nationality perspective. That's another reason why the news lines that we heard about getting America on the national ID tip is because America, North America, and also other parts of America has been reduced from that state of humanity. So again, don't just look at this as a Moorish thing. The first paragraph of the divine warning, which is for the nations, plural, right? The first wording says the citizens of all free national governments. So in his opening statement, he was talking to nations, plural. He was talking to humanity. Although he came back and specifically tried to directly help the Moorish Americans, but the overall objective was humanity. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Islam. He said all nations have suffered slavery. That's national again. And due to the fact that they have not honored their mothers and their fathers.
That's right.
So again, we got to understand that every nation might not have fell all the same, all to the same state. But every nation has work to do. Every nation is dealing with their own, what we call reparation,
That's right.
in their own way. And that's why each nation was sent a prophet. Directly, a prophet sent to every nation, speaking their language in the likeness of their own kind. Because every nation has fell. So we must understand that America, what we call America, dealing with geographically speaking now, America did not have a prophet.
That's right.
Directly, geographically speaking.
Yeah, no,
Not saying that Americans don't subscribe to a prophet. But according to the history of prophecies and successorship of prophets, where prophets were sent to each nation,
That's right.
there hasn't been a geographically prophet sent to North America
That's right.
prior to Prophet Noble Drew Ali.
Absolutely.
So that's very important. Dealing with science, dealing with truth, and dealing with history. And again, if we don't look and examine these principles, then we would always be lost, and we will always accept and subscribe to what anybody wants to bring to us. That's why the record tells us that if man knows, he must be that which he knows. That means you have to be able to prove it. You have to be able to stand on whatever you say. Whatever you subscribe to, you got to be able to stand on it. That's what it's going to come down to. That's what the law is pushing us to come down to. So it's not Trump's law.
Nope.
It's not even Drew Ali's law.
Nope.
It's God's law. It's universal law. It's natural law. It's civic law. When we understand the principles of it, right? And when we see people who follow suit on what we call national standards, then we accept it for what it is. Law governs all events, and we move forward. We either stand behind it, we back it, or we object to it. Truth is what is, falsehood is what seems to be. There's only two things. Islam. I want to read an excerpt out of the Moorish Guide, Friday, March 1st, 1929. It's no coincidence, law governs all events, that this is March 1st. Islam. According to this particular calendar that many of us observe, so it is, but it isn't. It's all perception. However, you can use it to your advantage. And that's another degree. So we're going to go into the prophet makes a plea to the nation. Because this is a plea to the nation again. And when we think nation, we think in Moorish nation, and this is much broader than that.
Yes, this is all nations.
Because nation is not just Moorish.
No.
It can be perception again. However, when we're speaking as teachers, we're speaking to all.
All nations. That's right.
We're speaking to us, but we're speaking to all.
That's right.
Our mission is to help all, not just us. If you only in it to help what you call Moors, then that's a selfish act.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not what this movement is dedicated to. So I'm going to read. Our divine and national movement stands for the specific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And I, the prophet, am applying to all loyal, faithful Moors, members, and American citizens to help me in my great uplifting acts of uplifting who?
Fallen humanity.
Fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For I have suffered much and severely in the past through a misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of the divine and national movement. I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names. I repeat, I know all true American citizens are identified by national descent names to answer and apply to the free national constitution of this free national republic of the United States of America.
That's right.
So that's reiterating and highlighting what Brother Omari just brought to us. That regardless of what someone says on their motive behind doing something, there's an underlying motive behind that as well. And sometimes things are beyond their own will on why something is done. Especially as humans, a lot of us humans are used as conduits and vehicles to pass messages to the four corners of the world. So some of us are angels not by choice. Some of us are angels in disguise. And again, you have to be learnt in order to recognize an angel when you hear it, see it, feel it, etc. Moving forward. That's why I am calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and financially in my great work I am doing to help this national government. Let's not forget that statement on what he just said. I want to reiterate that. That's why I'm calling on all true national citizens to help me morally and financially. Because he did say it takes finances to uplift a nation. So that's a concept a lot of us lose focus with too, because a lot of us think about me, and don't look at how to financially support a nation. And it doesn't mean just by coming and putting some money into the bucket. But that's something that you have to examine on how can you financially uplift a nation or help uplift a nation. There are ways to do it. There's plenty of ways to do it, but you have to look at, are you participating with that or not, morally and financially? Or are you just in this to get something or to get something accomplished in your own personal agenda? Question mark. For without a free national name, without a decent flag of your forefathers, there's not a national divine title of the government in which we live. That's one of the most powerful statements that I've yet heard. And what makes it so powerful is the fact that it's truth, but it's still not answered. It's still not upon consideration. It's still not explained. It's the most avoided question in conversation, even in the path to implement a national ID. Those type of components or ingredients will be left out of that scenario. So they might try to offer something that's of value, but if they don't put all of the ingredients in it, then the recipe is not the same. The nationality card will not be the same value if the substance is not the same. And he just laid down a substance right here. If you don't have a decent name and a flag of your forefathers, you can't even talk nationality. Nationality don't exist. Government technically don't exist. The word nation don't exist. Therefore, the word citizen is a fraud. That's why they got us playing games of U.S. citizen, because they can't satisfy those ingredients to back the citizenship. So it had to be transferred or reduced from national ID or nationality to citizen and race, or U.S. citizen and race. That's where race came from. It was a substitute for nationality being replaced. That's the clearest scope that I can give you. Does everyone understand that? Is there any questions on that? That's understanding the whole truth about your nationality and your birthright. That's the theft of the birthright. The taking away of the flag of your forefathers and your decent name. That's the theft of the birthright. Therefore, there is no birthright. Therefore, there is no rights. Inalienable or civil or substantive
Any others.
or unalienable, whatever you want to call them. There are no rights
Period.
that anyone is bound to respect once you've been reduced from a human to a corporate artifice or ward. There is no rights. So the Quran says, even in the path of wisdom, we toileth after folly. That means that you can't try to repair something if you don't repair it correctly. If we're not going to deal with the science of it, then we're not repairing it. Then we're not in progress. So we don't want to be like the horse and mule, which have no understanding. That's what the demonstration that they put the images of feathers on monkeys is all about. That's a demonstration showing that there's no understanding. So they're making a statement that these Asiatics have no understanding. Because that's the mindset or the IQ of a horse and a mule. They just serve with no understanding. They do with no understanding on why they do. So they're true servants. So that sometimes they use animals to express the IQ of humans. So I'm going to go over to a Black's Law Dictionary, real simple. And I'm going to identify, or I'm going to read the definition that they have listed under identification. Because when we say ID, that's an abbreviation. That's all that means. ID is identification, to identify. Sometimes we got to just put things in its proper perspective just to understand it a little bit. Because ID doesn't explain anything. Somebody say, let me see ID. You shouldn't respond to that question because that's an incomplete question and an incomplete statement. That has no bearings and no law when someone says, let me see some ID. And if you respond or you start reacting to that, what you do is you reflect your IQ. It's fair game from there. When Brother Omari raised the nationality card, it didn't say ID. So this is your nationality and identification card. So it has a different vibration when you say, this is my ID versus this is my identification. So according to Black's Law, 3rd edition, proof of ID is the first definition. Identification means proof of identity. That's what it says. The proving that a person, subject, or article before the court is the very same name, pardon self, it doesn't say name, is the very same that he or it is alleged, charged, or reputed to be. Moors, be yourself. Remember that statement? That's not me saying that, that's the wording. Be yourself. So that means to identify yourself. As where a witness recognizes the prisoner at the bar as the same person whom he saw commit the crime. That's just an example. So it goes on and it has other different definitions. Sameness, the fact that a subject, person, or thing before the court is the same. We read that already. Such sameness between two designs, inventions, combinations, etc. So just giving us a proper understanding that you are who your forefathers were without a doubt and contradiction. That's sameness. So when you identify yourself from a free national name perspective, you're saying, I am who my forefathers were. I am my forefathers. If you leave the national name out of the identification process, then you have no origin, is what you're declaring. Which the term refugee and wanderer comes in at. Because you're saying that I'm just here, but I have no origin. That's what those terms represent. Vagabonds. And that's what they refer Negroes, black, and coloreds to be, are vagabonds, having no home, having no place of origin. No different from what they refer to as an immigrant. So you're created as a foreigner or treated as a foreigner, worse than a foreigner, actually. Because at least a foreigner will have a place of origin or where they're saying they're coming from. But a person who declares Negro, black, colored status that has no origin. Only thing that they can say is we from Africa, which still relates back to a foreign status. And it becomes a privileged status to be here, according to law. Yes, sir.
That's the statement I was making, even though the prophet already gave you the nationality card. This is why he expressed the importance, come all ye Asiatics, and learn of your nationality and your birthright and of your foremothers and forefathers. This is before this was called America. That's why he put this in place. Because if you just operating like you said on Negro, black, or African American, you say, well, we're from Africa, then they're going to send you to Africa.
And that that becomes questionable.
Well, I mean,
because now Africa don't have to accept you.
Well, no. I'm just saying they can deport you, from the land that you already been on because you don't know. That's my point. You don't know where you're from or about your ancestry. So if you don't know nothing about your ancestry and all you can do when I stop you and say, well, I'm black, I'm African American. They brought us over from Africa. They can do what they want to do with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's 14th
That's what I'm
Amendment.
talking about.
14th Amendment jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
You become subject
to all abuses that citizens care to bestow upon you. And it's coming from the divine warning. That's why it's so important that we know this, especially now, because it's right in your face. There's no ignoring this. It's been here, but I mean now it's more self-evident than ever before.
Islam.
Islam.
So another term I want to go over is the word ignorance. Now we all hear the slogan, ignorance of the law is no excuse, right? So we're going to find out what that really means. Ignorance of what law? Well, the term ignorance, according to law, is the want or absence of knowledge. To be in the want of something means that you don't have something, you're without something. So you're in the want of knowledge. If you want something, that means you don't have it. So we got to understand the science of all of this. Knowledge of thyself and he who created thee. What else is it that man needed to know? So knowledge of yourself relates back to man, know thyself. Right? So knowing self, self-knowledge is what this all comes down to. Goes back to. It's where it starts, that's where it ends. There's nothing higher than that. Sometimes we be on a goose chase for information, for laws, for books, etc. And the prophet said, Prophet Noble Joe Ali, that is, if you ask me what to study, I'm going to tell you yourself. We all familiar with that, right? Yes. He said, and then you ask me, you come back again and ask me what to study next, and I'm going to tell you again, study yourself. Then he said, finally, when you study and study well, and you come back again and ask me what to study, and I'm going to repeat. Study yourself. So study yourself. See, perfected man must pass through all the ways of life. So we're talking about perfection, perfected man. When you're talking about God, the supreme God, you're talking about perfected man. So the only way you can meet God, see God, or be God is through perfecting yourself. And the only way you can perfect yourself is if you study yourself. If you study yourself, then you study everybody else. Because everybody else is a part of you.
That's right. That's right.
And you're a part of the universe. And you're the Lord of all the planes.
That's right.
So by studying self, you're studying everything that's in existence, right? Just by studying yourself. But if you don't know that, then you're looking for stuff outside yourself, which means that you never even started studying yourself because you don't know what to study. See how lost we can get?
Islam, just like me asking you right now, Grandchief, what is Islam?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about right that passage. What is Islam? I know you know the answer, but I'm just saying that's the same. That's the same.
Islam. So I'm going to read the definition of ignorance. And from an etymology point of view, it means to ignore. So ignorance is the lack of knowledge, but it also can be construed as to ignore knowledge. Ignorance of the law is the want of knowledge or the acquiescence with the laws of the land insofar as they apply to the act, relation, or duty, or matter under consideration. Did everybody get that?
Absolutely. If you want to just make it really clear, you can go again. I got it, but you can say it again.
So I'm gonna give a statement again. The Drew Ali said, "Help me get my people back into the constitutional fold of government." Corresponds with this want of knowledge again,
Absolutely. And social duties.
or ignorance of the law. So it can come to the same understanding. If you don't know self, you don't know the law, you don't know the land, you don't know the supreme law of the land, which means that you're outside of the constitutional fold of government.
Absolutely.
Very simple. So this is how, quote unquote, Negro, blacks, and coloreds have been outside of the constitutional fold of government and were barred from being citizens because they lack the knowledge of citizenship, which means they lack the knowledge of self, of who they are and who they came and where they came from, which gives off the same interpretation of ignorance of the law. So, using my own words now, Negro, blacks, and colored was ignorant of the laws. Therefore, they cannot be citizens of the United States of America, which is true, to the point of true meaning that if anyone is ignorant of the laws of any land, they cannot be a citizen of the land. So that's just not a United States of America thing. That's an international thing. Another quote Drew Ali made was, "Being born here does not make you a citizen. One must declare his free national name and religion to be recognized, right? To be recognized, to be recorded as a citizen." Thank you. Of any land, of any government. Ignorance is not a state of the mind in the sense in which sanity and insanity are. When the mind is ignorant of a fact, its condition still remains sound. The power of thinking or judging or willing is just as complete before communication of the fact as after. The essence of texture, so to speak, of the mind is not, as in the case of insanity, affected or impaired. Ignorance of a particular fact consists in this, that the mind, although sound and capable of healthy action, has never acted upon the fact in question.
Right.
Because the subject has never brought to the notice of the perceptive faculties. Do we understand that?
Absolutely.
So it's just like we use the term civil liter mortuus, which means dead in the eyes of law. And we tell people that civil liter mortuus, or Negro, black, and colored, just means that you're dead. That a corporate person is an artificial person, which means that you're dead, not living. So we say that, right? Then they say, well, that doesn't make sense. We're all living. We all breathing. We all acting. So their concept, they're thinking, well, how can you be dead? So they're looking at your lesson as you talking some phony baloney nonsense. How can we be dead? So it's hard to understand and believe that when you don't understand the law behind it. And ignorance, the definition I just read explains that. That it's not saying that you're totally ignorant to everything, like you're in, like it's insanity, but you're ignorant to the fact that's in question.
That's a question.
So you're ignorant or dead into a particular area or idea of what's in question alone, not saying other faculty. You might be very keen in something else. You might have knowledge on something else, but the question at hand you're ignorant of. And that's the same example of the civil little more twos. That when it comes to citizenship and knowledge of self, we're civically dead
Right.
as a people.
That's right. Absolutely.
Not saying that we're not living beings,
There's all kinds of deaths.
but legally,
Yes.
if we can't transparent that and make that clear, it seems that we're talking off the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To tell someone that you're dead, and they obviously got breath going through their nostrils.
Clarify.
Exactly. That can be construed as ambiguous.
Yeah, true.
I'm talking in a court of law. I'm not necessarily talking on the street.
Understood.
But we have to, again, if you're going to be able to explain this, that I'm not Negro, black, and colored, you got to be able to explain it from that perspective. So if someone can really legally know where you're going with this.
Absolutely.
Islam, brother, fire, go.
Islam, great sheep. I wanted to add to what you were saying with the ignorance. It says the want or absence of knowledge. And then in chapter 38, holy instruction from the prophet, the soul of man, it says that thou hast a soul is of all knowledge, the most certain of truths, the most plain unto thee. Be meek, be grateful for it. Seek not to know it perfectly. It is inscrutable. And then it says, thinking, understanding, reasoning, and willing. Call not these the soul, they are its actions, but they are not its essence. And then in here, in the definition, it says that its conditions still remain sound. The power of thinking, of judging, of willing, is just a complete before communication of the fact as after, like the truth after, essence or the texture. That's the same thing Drew Ali put in here. It's not the essence. It's his actions. So I just wanted to bring that out. And then he said, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but he said you got to examine by his faculties or something like that.
No, by his virtues.
Virtues.
Islam. Thank you for that observation. So ignore, this is the definition of ignore. It says to be ignorant of or unacquainted with. To disregard willfully. So these are all torts of this. To disregard willfully. To refuse to recognize. All right. This is more where Drew Ali was coming from.
Exactly.
The other term we used to use is psychopathic inferiority complex. And it means the same thing. If you willfully disregard the laws of the land or the constitutional law, it's constitutional psychopath inferiority, where you ignore the standards, the concepts of a civilized constitutional order of things, and you habitually or consistently keep violating those same constitutional laws. And again, that's what the state of mind of Negro, black, and colored has been reduced to. That's the activities of, I should say. That from time to time again, we just keep doing the same thing and we continue to be outside the constitutional fold. Absolutely. Like Drew Ali said, everybody's been told. Said if you cannot convince your brother that he's not Negro, black, and colored, there's nothing else to say to him. Because that individual is constitutional psychopathic, inferior. That means they willfully ignore the laws.
Ignoring what the truth is.
It's one thing not to have knowledge of it. Like we all was at a point where we didn't know that this existed. That's one state or tort of it. But now after we get learned in it and we are aware of it, and we just say, well, you know, I ain't with that stuff, or, you know, I'm gonna still do my thing. And once we make a sound decision to ignore it, that's when these legal torts are more effective.
That's right.
That's when you're in court, in physical perspective, but also in moral judgment.
That's right.
In moral judgment, you're held to these accountabilities too. And that's for, like, we can say, well, you know, physical man can't judge me. If you want to come from that perspective, that's cool. But on a higher realm, God is going to judge you. The universe is going to judge you.
That's right.
Your ancestors are going to judge you.
Absolutely.
And you got to worry, but you're going to be judged by something or somebody. Some force is going to judge you. You're not the biggest force in the universe. What is that noise?
That's the ID maker.
All right, so. Other definition, it says to decline to take notice of.
Wow.
To decline.
Wow.
I decline nationality.
You won't even hear about it.
I decline truth. It's all synonyms. But just sometimes when we use other words, sometimes it
sparks it.
Yeah, it digests differently for some people.
That decline definitely digests. Won't even hear it.
But in law, if you're dealing with a tribunal system, you have to decline by saying I object.
Absolutely.
Because if an allegement is made about you or pertaining to you, and if you don't object, then you ignore.
That's right.
You acquiesce.
That's right. Either way.
So if they say, oh, that black female over there with the white turban, you know, and you just don't say nothing because you think I'm above that.
Better speak up.
And then you stand up, or they say such and such, or you here, and you raise your hand, I'm here. That's what you just did. You just ignored the facts of the alleged situation, which means that you agree now, because that's what acquiescence means. That means if you don't challenge it or decline it, then you mean I accept. Your silence is an acceptance in a lot of situations in contract law. It's like a court document come to you and they say, well, if you don't respond in 30 days or order of judgment will be put in on your behalf, that's acquiescence. That means that you ignored it. You declined to respond or challenge what was made on your behalf. And that's what not proclaiming your nationality does. It means you acquiesce to the fact of who they say you are. So either they gonna say who you are or you gonna say who you are. But somebody gonna say who you are. And that's a fact. If we don't challenge what they already have stated or put in the record, then we acquiesce to whatever's in that book. And that's how we've been reduced to Negro, blacks, and colors, or slaves, is by simply acquiescence to what declarations that they made. Because there was never a census where our people agreed to be Negro, black, and colored.
No.
That's not something, and this is what I tell our brothers all the time, where they talk about they black and they proud and da-da-da-da. I said that was never a declared national name by any of our leaders. And I'm not talking about our modern leaders. I'm talking about that wasn't a tribal or national leader, or no sultan have never made those type of
statements,
name gestures on the behalf of our people. like the names of tribes were designated by the tribal leaders as this is what my people go by, or this is the name we're going to be known as. The tribal leader has that authority to make that name designation on behalf of the people. No, so it's not just tribe, but it's nation, it's country, kingdom, whatever term you want to use on behalf of the people. But no one has stood up, and no one, because there's no black land.
No.
There's no Negro land.
No.
So there was no Negro leaders, no black leaders from that perspective, because there was never an organized government under the term Negro, black, and colored. There was no representatives of Negro, black, and colored. So therefore, there couldn't have been anyone to declare a national name for such misnomers. Officially. Thank you. Clarifying that. Yes, sir.
What's up? Rise and praise to Allah. Holy Prophet Noble Valley, temple, and all those in attendance. To your point, there was a declaration of it, but it wasn't official. That Negro leader was James Brown. Say it loud and black and proud, and everybody testified.
Absolutely.
Just wasn't official. So.
It's not. Yeah. That's why they call him what, the Godfather of soul.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but yeah, but no, you're right, Greg. On the national
Guess
scale.
if he's your Godfather, he can speak on behalf of you.
I guess if you don't mind, Grant, what you were saying was perfect, because I was in a discussion with the lawyer that's on my job. Just kept talking about no blacks and African Americans, and I kept saying, well, where's that on a national scale? I said, has it ever been declared a nationality by anyone? And he looked at me. He says, well, no, it just is. I said, that's my point. It isn't. You know, I said, it doesn't exist. But if you accept it, you know what I'm saying, I said, it's all about a nationality. I said, what is your nationality? He says, oh, I'm a Jew. That's my nationality. It's being Jewish. I said, well, in all truth, we can't. That's not a nationality either. That is an adept chambered name given to the people. He says, wow. He says, I don't. He said, I got to go back and research that. But I'm just saying, to your point, nationality is there. It's always been there by ancestors. I'm saying, as no ancestors never came and said that we're African American, Black, Negro, or colored, Ethiopians.
It's not. Say it again, brother.
I was saying you can't really be assigned to a nationality. Excuse me. First, I rise and give all praise to Allah, honor to Noble Drew Ali, and to the Grand Sheikh, and to all that pertains to Islam. I was saying that you cannot be assigned to a nationality and that be correct, because your nationality actually comes from your forefathers. So if someone decides that, okay, your nationality is you're Black, your nationality is you're Puerto Rican or something like that, then you are falsely being characterized, you're falsely being identified. And so to accept that would definitely mean you're in a state of ignorance.
It's not. Are there any questions so far? So you said ramifications behind implementing a real ID or nationality card. It will open up a lot of can of worms here. You know, and to truthfully to do it the right way, it will. But if we ignore how they want to do it and let them redefine what it means, then we acquiesce, which means that we're just as guilty. So again, that's why our job is to teach the Asiatics the truth about their nationality and birthright. The more people who have knowledge of self, the better and the quicker we can build a better world. And we have more assistance and have more universal assistance in getting that accomplished. Because numbers is where it's at when it comes to especially trying to overturn or even stop certain laws from being passed. It's all about numbers. And a member's interest should be in the same direction. If we have collective support of people with the same ideas and same mission, we definitely got enough numbers to make certain things occur. It's just those numbers have to be unified in thought. And that's the job of Satan, to stir all those numbers up and make them go in several different directions. Then those numbers don't look too good anymore. They all look the same, but they're not the same. And that's the result of us now.
That's right.
We all look the same, but we're all not the same.
We don't think the same.
Just like the Quran says, everybody worships Allah. Everybody just seeing from different points of view. You know, so we all saying we Moors, but we look at Moors from different points of view. So I hope this brought some clarity to the national identification of us as Moors, individually speaking, and just give us more ammunition on how to defend ourselves, how to explain ourselves. And when we're challenged out there on the highways and the byways, we'll know how to address certain matters. Islam.
And when the prophet said that the keys in the hands of the Asiatics, especially here in North America, because one thing you start to see, like you was talking about the brother that was said, "Oh, where's he from?" He said he's Jewish, but it's like it's not just the Moors of North America. It's really like all the nations. That's why the prophet was talking to all nations, because even aside from us, you have a Jew who say his nationality is Jewish, and then like run into an Egyptian brother, and he say, "Well, I was Egyptian, but I'm American now." Still not making reference to a nation. So it's like through us and underneath of all our children, so to speak, is that we're all in disarray. So in order for them to get right, we have to get right to reteach.
Absolutely. We must have the light to reveal it, right?
If we don't know ourselves, then how can we expect for him to say, I'm German, I'm not Jewish? If he don't know any better, we don't know any better, then nobody knows any better.
Is it the Slavic or Germanic?
Right.
Islam. And another term that goes along with this lesson, the word race I mentioned. This is the Black Law Dictionary's definition of the word race. If you don't know this, please write this down or make reference to where you can find it.
I got Black's Law.
But as long as you keep checking off something on an application that says race, then you need to understand what's going on, because either you acquiescing to something or you accepting something. This is where contract starts. Race. The term primarily means stop. Don't write nothing yet.
They gave me a little school trip. You said stop yo.
That's the first lesson, though.
was like a little
How
first
can you?
grade.
It says race. I was reading the definition.
Oh, it actually says
It,
stop?
no,
I
it
thought
does.
you
No,
was
no,
talking
no.
about
It,
stop.
it doesn't say stop.
Oh,
I said stop
okay, I thought you said
because I realized when I said stop, it was mentally. Then I verbally said it. But you can't continue. This is how you study. This is how you be at it. You should not continue reading that without first acknowledging the fact that something's wrong with that definition. I will. I'm just showing you that you should not, even if I didn't, I could have fooled you and just kept reading, right? You should have said stop. Everybody should have demanded me to stop because it doesn't make sense. It says it primarily means. That's the first clue, a red flag that something's wrong with that definition. How can something primarily mean something? That means that you've been checking off stuff, but it primarily means something. That means that it's also construed as something else. But if that was never questioned on your application, then now what does that tell you? That means that whatever you've been checking off as race means it was an underlying definition to it that you never looked at because you kept writing and you didn't stop. That means that it never dawned on you. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. You have to be able to catch or recognize an error when you hear it, when you see it. You got to be able. Your senses have to be able to tell you something's wrong with this picture. This is how we have to navigate as physical beings, as scientists. When a scientist see that something's not right with that formula, the scientist knows that there's a problem. Wait, this don't add up, or these numbers don't add up. So therefore, like an accountant, if something's not right with these numbers, the accountant knows that this whole thing got to be reviewed now.
That's right.
I'm not accountant to tell you. I'm not signing off to that.
Sign off on that.
I can't back that. I'm not putting my name to that. You see what I'm saying? Because they're bound by law. Absolutely. Same thing with us. If we're constitutionalists, if we're scientists, then we got to be obligated to law. I'm obligated not to go further until I investigate that now. Hold yourself to a higher accountability. That's why I said stop. So now we're going to go over it. Race. The term primarily means an ethnical stock. Quotations. A great division of mankind having in common certain distinguishing physical peculiarities, constituting a comprehensive class, appearing to be derived from a distinct primitive source. Appearing to be. Appearing. If something is appearing to be, then there's a good possibility that it is not. It's color or color of law or in the semblance of something. It's false. It says a tribal or national stock, a division or subdivision of one of the great racial stocks of mankind, distinguished by minor peculiarities. Since when does the word stock come into
race
to human classification?
Exactly.
Now, as we talk about actual stocks and bonds.
And it still doesn't identify the individual.
No, but you are a stock. A Negro, black, and color is a stock.
That's right.
According to investment stocks.
It's just like a stock of cows.
But that's what the whole birth certificate is based off. It's a stock certificate. So it's a designated or declared stock that's used in a return for an investment. That's what it is, or what we also call a warehouse receipt, a birth certificate, whatever you want to call it. Has nothing to do with what it appears to be. Like it's saying, a birth certificate appears that this name on this birth certificate is a newborn baby, da 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 da, name, height, age, etc., race, which is the fiction, but it appears to be a living soul. But according to corporate activity, it has nothing to do with a human being. It's a stock certificate for investment purposes, i.e., that's what Negro, Black, and Colored was invented on paper to be and to do to serve the purpose of stocks. Slavery is stock.
That's right.
Human trafficking is stocks. That's the only reason for slavery. Slavery wasn't done just for ego to make them feel like they're superior. It was all an investment. It's for money. Bartering, trade, whatever you want to call it. The actual currency is not even the point. But it became assets. And it's still assets if we still ignore the fact that they're assets. If we don't change or challenge the fact that they're assets, then it goes in the books as an asset. And an asset was also known as property. And under the legal slavery era time, a slaveholder was entitled to his right to property, which was not necessarily his land, but his slaves, because the slaves was part of his property, and that was legal. And it's still the case.
Yeah, still today.
It's just more modernized. The terminology of it is different, and we're talking stocks on a different scale. The best way to get us to ignore something is by not understanding it from the get-go. It's easy to ignore it when you don't understand what's going on. It's like it could be something going on in China right now, which there's a lot of stuff going on in China that we just have no knowledge of. If we have no knowledge of it, we're ignoring it. We're not necessarily guilty of it, but we are ignoring it because we don't have knowledge of it. And it kind of like it's the same situation with us, where we're ignoring certain things going on with us right here. Some of us, we have knowledge of it. Some of us, we don't. But it's still being ignored. And the fact that it's being ignored is prolonging the people to benefit off of it.
Absolutely.
To capitalize off of it. Race. So lastly, it says the word race. And now at this particular time of the definition, they put the word race in quotation marks, which lets you know, hint, hint, hint. It's an error here. They don't agree, somebody don't agree, or everybody don't agree. Is what that means when it's in quotation. Not real. It's a gesture or a suggestion. It says the word race connotes descent. It's exactly what it says, but in quotation this time. But the rest of the definitions wasn't in quotation. The word race itself wasn't in quotation until the last part of it, where it says it connotes to descent, which it doesn't connote to descent. That's why they put it in quotation. But all this mumbo jumbo that they gave behind what the word means was all false. Talking about distinctive stock. That's just a decoy. And look at what we have been agreeing to all these years of just assuming race meant descent or whatever we thought it meant, citizenship or whatever, and not challenging it. When if we just looked it up, we can tell that this thing had no substance behind it whatsoever. Animals don't even classify according to stock or race. Their breeds is rooted in nationality. Yes, sir. Flying go.
Islam. In etymology, when you looking up the origin of a word,
Mm-hmm.
and it has the actual word that you're looking in,
Mm-hmm.
you're looking up, then that shows that it's color, or like an illusion,
Mm-hmm.
it's deceptive. But you cannot have the same word that you're looking for, or looking for the origin, and then have that as a definition.
Yes, the connotative meaning.
Yeah, and then that's why they put it in the Phoenician brackets,
Mm-hmm.
which they call those parentheses.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they put it in the parentheses to make it seem like that's the origin
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Absolutely.
It means this word
Mm-hmm.
in the definition.
Mm-hmm. So like Drew Ali said, among the Asiatic race and nations. So if you're going to use the word race as stock, then it really should be human. And that's what he exactly said. He said the only race is the human race.
It's always have been.
So if anything, if you wanted to use that, and some wars do, where it says race, they put human or Asiatic. But your descent is not your race.
I wouldn't use it right at all.
Yeah, but I'm just clearing it up to someone who plays the game.
Yeah, true.
It should never be used and applied to citizenship. Never. And when someone uses it, you should call them out on it. And when it's applied to you, you challenge it. That's the only way we're going to correct this. It's not just to get this knowledge and say, well, I ain't going to be, this is for me now. That still does you no good. Because reality is when we leave these doors, wherever we go and talk to people, and if it's home, family, work, wherever you go, it's not going to be this conversation. Majority of the time. The people the people you're going to go around when you leave here are not under this particular awareness. And that is also the problem. That if that's continuous, then what's the point? Really? What's the point? Again, he said it again. If you can't convince your brother,
sister,
he's not Negro, black, or colored, then there's nothing else to say to him. I'm not telling you don't go speak to nobody no more. I'm just saying that there's a balance somewhere within that you need to recognize. You leave here and then go to the club with a group of friends and they just totally in left field, then like, what are you doing? Like, what's the purpose?
Exactly.
How are you going to arrive to where you need to be if you just accept that? Because it goes right back to the ignorance thing again. You're just ignoring the laws. There's people that want this information. There's people that need to be saved. And if we're not spending time with them, then that means that we're not really sacrificing and we're really not being missionaries of what this movement represents.
pamphlets. Shukran.
And right after the word race is another word called raceway. W-A-Y. Yeah, they do have a gas station called Raceway. But get this. The word raceway means an artificial canal dug in the earth. An artificial canal dug in the earth. So they're showing you the root of the word, because everything has a root meaning, like you were saying, etymology. Raceway, the root of the word is race. The way of race. So they're showing you that the process or the origin of the word race is an artificial process, period. But just regardless of what they apply it to, the term, the root of it is race, which implies an artificial process of whatever else that they added to. That's what, just how you study this and just to see what is meant by the word. So they took the as applied to a citizenship or to people, it implies an artificial person, period. Yes, like the river Nile. Islam.
And like you said, it does apply to people the way they're trying to artificially recognize people, because you got a hyphen in between it, just like with Moorish Americans. You got to identify with your origin and your descent nature. They saying that their descent nature is just up in the air.
Who's saying that? I didn't get that part.
Whoever created the word, the word race.
Oh, all right, Islam.
And then it says an artificial canal dug in the earth. So if you think about it, how the gods and the earth speak, that the woman is the earth, and then it's an artificial canal, makes me look at it as like the birth canal. When the child comes out of the womb man, or giving birth. All right. And how it's cut off. They said a channel cut off in the ground. So that if we are Moors, and us being cut off of that channel,
or from the human family, would be the symbolically.
Of the cable attached to the mother, the umbilical cord and the spiritual cord, the birthright and then the divine creed.
Islam. And that's exactly what's going on. What you know, for example, what's the race of a so-called white person?
Good question.
You know, according to, well, that's what the Black's Law Dictionary says, the Caucasian race. That's what it says in Black's Law Dictionary under free white person. Free white person, it says, does not mean the Caucasian race.
Right, it does not mean Caucasian race.
But it does include the Moorish inhabitants of Spain.
That's right.
That's what it says in the definition.
Yes, exactly.
Which definition?
Free white persons.
This is a Black's Law.
Yes.
Yes, it's in Black's Law.
Yeah, that term is in the Black's Law Dictionary. Not in all of them, but it's in the third and the fourth.
Third, fourth, and fifth. After that, it's gone.
So that's, you know, these are lessons for us, but they also lessons we take back to show other people who's not under this awareness. It says the term primarily means an ethnic stock.
Ethnic stock.
If they put that on a application, if they just took the word race out and just put what's your ethnic stock, a person would be lost.
Yeah.
Person won't even fill out nothing because they confused now. What are you talking about? What's my ethnic stock?
For slave.
And offended.
Yeah, they could be, but they should be just as offended.
And for race.
Now they accept it.
Right. What's your ethnic stock? Slave.
I can't see them being no more offended because they call themselves niggas.
Right. Black people.
And they accepted the term slave.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can't see them being no more offended.
Offended. Absolutely.
It's just total. To me, it's just total ignorance. Once you really realize it, you know. But hey, if the shoe fit, wear it. You know, maybe some of us just still accept the fact that we are slaves.
Exactly.
You know, because if we feel like that we're that, then we won't be as offended at the term used on us.
Exactly.
So maybe. It's not.
But like flying, go say from the artificial birth canal, coming out the womb and now having the race all the way up to accepting Negro, black, and colored. It all must make sense in one because that's how you keep acquiescing to all the negativity. If you knew that you needed a descent name of your forefathers in the flag, then there would be plenty of red flags that were raised in the midst of this, even for race.
Mm-hmm.
If you knew, if you just had 2 cents, you would know.
Absolutely.
Know better.
Yes.
But because we ignorant to the whole game, it all looks like it's all true, but falsehood manifested.
Absolutely. So what you're really saying is from the black stock,
Right.
which was created in 1774, well, not 1779 or whatever year, and that's your race, that's your stock, that's your beginning, which their beginning is slavery. That beginning is slavery. So what you're saying, your stock is 1774, i.e., which is beginning of slavery.
Islam Grand Sheikh.
This is not hidden, meaning that all of this adds up.
Yeah, true.
And it's not even hidden. Well, like I said, most of us just accept it. That's what it really is. Most of us just accept it, like Harriet Tubman said.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason why a lot of us acquiesce to it or ignore it, because in the mind it's like we accepted it. Like, okay, what's next? So what do we do now? Just like living in a cage or living, in poverty, where you accept it, you have no will to be free.
True.
So you don't work towards coming out of that situation.
You work to stay in it.
And that's really what makes the difference with the Moorish organization and specifically the temple. When Drew Ali put in writing, he says, if you think your condition could be better, then you join the Moorish Science Temple of America and become a part of the movement. He said, then you'll have power to redeem your race. So again, you got to first think that your condition can be better, and that you got to think that there's room for progress. You got to be able to admit to yourself that something is wrong, and there's still much wisdom to be learned. If you're not at that point, like you know it all, then there's no reason to even listen to none of this, because you're not going to listen. Because in the mind, it's like, I'm past that, I know this already, or I don't believe that. So you don't think that change needs to take place. Islam, there was one hand up back there I think I missed. Islam.
Oh, I was just gonna say, one of the saddest features of accepting the fact that you're black, Negro, black, and colored is that there are so many rules and regulations that apply to being stock and being slavery that when you accept those titles, you don't really know what you are putting yourself into. We walk in the courtroom and we complain, or we want certain justice and certain rights, but we walk in the courtroom putting ourselves in a position of not having any rights. And then we don't understand why they can railroad us and do what they want to do to us. But we walk in there saying, do this to me because I am black. And black comes with being a slave. It comes with being dead. It comes with being cattle or stock. So we put ourselves in the position of being railroaded. At the same time, we're asking, don't railroad me. And the ignorance is the sad part about it because we don't realize what we're actually saying we are. Do to me.
And you're absolutely correct. So what is the solution to that?
I think the solution to that is get your free national name and learn how to stand outside of being called Negro, black, and colored, and what actually applies to your free national person. And then you can say, no, that's not me. So whatever you got written there doesn't apply to me. How are you going to put me in that category? But if you don't know, if you don't take your nationality, take back your nationality, if you don't honor your forefathers and mothers, then you are putting yourself in that position to be railroaded. And I use the term railroad for all the things that they hold up against you.
Islam. Brother Shakin?
That's it.
Excuse me. I think a lot of the solution comes in our women. You know, our women, to some aspect, has gotten us into this situation because I come from a generation of fatherless homes. In that aspect, most men in my generation, we all say the same thing. You know, and you hear it all the time. My grandmother, keyword, made me go to church. Nobody willfully got up and got dressed and went to the church. It's not like when you realize that you got high blood pressure and you say, well, if I eat differently, it's going to solve that problem. Nobody just woke up one day and realized, yo, this Christianity thing is kind of deep. I think I might want to go in that lane. Nobody does that. You know what I'm saying? Unless they probably incarcerated, trying to find some kind of salvation, whatever the case may be. But, you know, educating our women is a key aspect of it because they have a lot of influence. Even if you look on social media today, you look at a woman that's putting up a picture, half nude or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And you might get 2,000-3,000 people that like that. If she had any profound message attached to that photo, that's 3,000 minds she can affect. Rather than people looking at it from a lewd aspect. You see what I'm saying? And just drooling over it. And it's like, there's no substance to it. But if she had something that she said, okay, cool, you know, maybe a phrase, a quote, something that just enlighten you and can take your mind to another level. You see what I'm saying? And people sign up for that, okay? Because she's dropping jewels every day. So you sign up for that. So in 7 days, you get 7 messages, you know what I'm saying? And you become a different individual than you were a week ago. Because if you're not transcending every day, then mentally you are dead.